For many of you, the first time you jumped into New World, you probably ran into issues like this.
Minutes before I actually got in the queue, I played D2. Oh, damn! Holy shit! Oh my god, 10 grand?
And this... bugs, crashes, weird glitches. It was all part of the early experience, yet even with all these problems, the game had unique charm, the open world immersion, the gathering and the crafting system, the action combat, the audio. Honestly, some of the best I have seen in MMO, maybe even in any game at all. Amazon Games patched the game repeatedly during the early release period, but for every bug fix, it often felt like 3 more appeared somewhere else. And then there was the big issue, like the Void Gauntlet, which could strip every temporary buff from the enemies, including food and consumables, truly just overpowered and broken. But here is where things get very interesting. New World was not done evolving. Over time, the developers added a huge amount of content, 3 new weapons, 6 new expeditions, mutated dungeons, reworked maps and zones, including First Light, transforming into what we know today as Elysian Wilds. They improved PvP with the new game mode, Capture the Flag, arena maps that were added, and influence races that were given new rewards. And then we got a randomized dungeon mode called Catacombs, which I absolutely was a huge fan of. I liked it a lot. It was basically Catacombs, but every time you entered, it was different. Every time the generation was different, and the mobs were getting scaled with difficulties, so there was some planning and strategy to be done. They were adding mount skins consistently that were really nice. They added swimming. I know New World actually added swimming to its own game. Controller and console support was also added. They added transmog systems, server transfers, and artifacts with unique perks, but they went overboard with artifacts. They added way too many artifacts and never really bothered going back to them and trying to balance them, nerfing them or buffing them. They just kept on introducing new ones all the time. Mini raids, the hatchery, the oldest one, the winter room forge there you could find a new artifact, the Sandwar 20-man trial that later on got a rework and it basically got a bit harder with the scale up. Five Gorgons where you would farm your Gorgonite Inductor so you could craft your new gear. Isle of Night, the hardest raid they ever added. I absolutely loved this raid. I was one of the lucky people to be able to finish it before the sad announcement they put out. It was generally a really hard raid and I loved it. The musical instruments and the whole performance system was also really nice. They had quality of life updates, seasonal events and more. Basically, if you return doing these later seasons, there was a ton to do. And yet, with every edition, new bugs continue to appear. The classic New World experience. The takeaway is very simple. New World was not ready for launch in 2021. But over time, the game genuinely improved. By the Night Haven expansion, people's sentiment was largely positive. Is it worth playing in 2025? Yes, absolutely. Even if you don't dive into the endgame content. The world, crafting, story, and combat are all super solid. Season 10, in my own opinion, was their best update ever. The kind of content that makes players return. Whether you're new or coming back after a break, raids are generally challenging. PvP now has variety to it, and a speedrunning community even developed, tackling fights designed for 20 players with only 9. And for example, people were doing sandworms without armor. It was genuinely getting better. If development had continued, we might have seen the daggers in the whole form. Yes, they have released the daggers, but who knows, maybe they still had work to be done on them. They were pretty underwhelming, if I'm being honest. They were being such a hyped weapon that they never really released. They were hyping it for over 2 years and then boom, they just release it when the game gets the worst announcement. Another big one that I really was looking forward to was a battle royale mode where you would be put on a map and you would be gearing up and then fighting people. Something similar to like Fortnite. Global crafting storage. Yes, they will be adding global crafting storage. This would be huge for the game, huge for the quality of life. There would be ranked PvP and additional raid difficulties, which would make PvP is so much better and so much more popular because ranked in PvP is a big thing in games. More zones, siege weapons, and even ship buildings, which would be insane. Imagine being on a ship floating through the water of New World, where probably the sounds would be amazing, like they did with mining or foraging, for example. Season 10 delivered on all its promises, and it did it with the smallest dev team since the launch, which makes what happened next even more shocking. The Amazon shock announcement. Just 2 weeks after the Season 10 release, Amazon laid off nearly the entire development team and announced there would be no further content updates for New World. This was not because the game was failing financially. It sold millions of copies across PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 5. It seems Amazon decided AAA MMO development was just too labor intensive and risky, and that leaner AI driven project were safer bets. For the fans, it felt like a rock pull, to say the least. Returning players bought the season pass, logged in, excited for new content, and then they were told the game was essentially being retired. Imagine that feeling. Community, impact, and hope. Still, the servers remain online. For now, at least. There's even petition asking Amazon to reinstate the development team. Some rumors suggest another publisher could acquire New World, but they would need a new team familiar with the Azad engine, a highly customized engine built specifically just for this game that makes a future revival extremely complicated. It's a bleak situation, and yet the game still has so much potential. Private servers, a potential buyout, or community-driven projects to still keep the spirit of New World alive. My personal reflections and closing of this video, well, looking back, New World is one of those games that sticks with you. It was not perfect. Far from it, but it had a soul. The world felt alive, the combat felt satisfying, and the community, well, the people who played it made it special. For years, I have seen moments of teamwork, chaos, and just pure fun that you do not get in most games anymore. That's what made New World stand out. Even with bugs, balancing issues, or confusing systems, there was something magical about the logging in and exploring the whole world of Eternum. It's bittersweet now, knowing that the game's development has stopped, but while the servers are still up, there's a chance to enjoy what the devs have built, the fights, the crafting, the stories, before it's all just going to be vanished. For me, New World will always be a reminder of what a game can be when passion meets the ambition, even if it does not last forever. If you haven't experienced it yet, or you haven't checked it for a while, now is the perfect time. And for those who have been part of the journey, thank you so much for playing, for creating the memories, and for being a part of the community. With all of that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching today's documentary or New World Eternum. It means a lot to me that you made it to the end of the video. I wish you all a happy new year and stay safe.